It's a third line day. We're in gate 48, and the third line is called Incommunicado. When you come to the third line, you come to the theme of individual depth. Both the third and the fourth lines are the most difficult of all of the lines in the 48. Both of these lines are indications of long-term processes. It's not until you get to your half-life point, your midlife, that you begin to get a benefit from the depths that can be developed there. Both incommunicado and restructuring, which is the fourth line, they are by their very nature long-term processes. And this means that the depth is not there for a very long time. The well really has to fill up, and it takes time. So the third line is called Incommunicado, and this line kind of speaks for itself as a line of adaptation. It's the end of the lower trigram process. The exaltation says, symbolized by the no moon phase, where the potential of light is unrecognized, unavailable, and unknowable. The redeeming value is in the transience of such a stage, which can give strength to those so afflicted, where the development of taste and depth is a long-term process. When we talk about the moon, we have to recognize that being incommunicado is automatically going to be something that is cyclical. You're not always incommunicado. Filling of the well is a process that can take a very long time. This is the dripping tap from gate 18, slowly, drop by drop, filling the depth. It's a process that is rooted in repetition. Real depth is the mastery of one's subject. It doesn't happen overnight, and being incommunicado can bring some breathing space, some time away from the trial and error of putting your depth out there at the wrong time, not waiting for recognition, having to withdraw, break the bond, try again, move on. In the detriment, we have the profound anxiety when a profound intelligence is forgotten in the wilderness. The tendency in a long-term process, which means the development of taste and depth, the tendency to anxiety. This is a third line. They have to wait through their process. Ra said that midlife was when their prana changed. They start breathing out rather than breathing in. So they may as well relax until then, because it's not until they get to that point that they will really be able to make a contribution with their depth. And only when they get to that point will they be able to have the kinds of relationships that are going to help them to manifest their depth. The 48.3 in the detriment knows that there will be a time that it's important for it to just recognize that it's in its learning arc, in its process. And it's not so much that the anxiety then disappears. It doesn't necessarily, but it won't carry the same potency. It won't surface as much because the anxiety is always drawn out by interaction with the other and the failure to manifest. If you're operating correctly, you will have the right connections and the right process will be there for you. So the depth is there, but it takes many years for it to flower. The process is such that anyone who has this line knows that the depth is within them. There is an urge to bring it out. It's very difficult for people who've got a lot of individuality, say like Ra had. He had this gate in the third and the fourth line in his Neptunes, and yet he was very, very individual. For the individual to have to wait on the collective, for the collective to recognize them, for a manifester to have to wait for that recognition in order to bring out the depth. Oh, you can almost sense the frustration, just reading about it. There's a lifetime process of not knowing what depth you hold in your well. No idea. A long development of taste and depth that really speaks to the maturing of this third line and the sense of frustration carries through into the grounding with the 21-3, which is called powerlessness. Now you can feel in your bones why Ra said these were difficult lines. So Venus moves into gate 1, or has gone there, at just 5 to 1 this morning. Gate 1 is in the G center. It's the yangest of all of the gates, 6 yang lines, which are just straight, unbroken lines, yang associated with male energy. It is a gate of self-expression. It's also called the creative. It's in individual circuitry, which means that it carries a mutative quality, potential melancholy. It has the circuit keynote of empowerment. Gate 1 empowers others by expressing itself in its own way. Venus brings attention to our values, our own personal values. So does this resonate with you, this gate? Do you value your own unique self-expression? Do you recognize your unique self-expression? It's a projector gate, after all. Mercury, also on the move today, moves into gate 57 at 21:24, so a bit later on. It's a splenic gate, 57. The moon was here yesterday, the gate of intuitive insight. This is a gate of individuality. You know, it knows what is correct for its own survival. All the splenic gates are about survival in some form or another. And all the splenic gates, as we know, carry a fear. And this fear is about what the future is going to bring. So essentially, it's fear of tomorrow. And yet there is the intuitive insight to know that operating according to strategy and authority brings the potential to be safe and secure in the now. It's not a given, of course, but it's more likely when you're operating correctly than if you're allowing the mind to have free reign over the life. The moon is still in gate 50 since 5 a.m. This is the cauldron, the gate of values. And then it moves into gate 28 at 16:25, the game player, the gate of the gambler, pushing the envelope to see how far they can go. Now, this is individual circuitry, so there could be the struggle to empower others. Well, others can start to look at what is going to be important to them. This could be how you empower them. Although it's individual, you're not trying to make anything happen for anybody else, and you certainly don't want to listen to anybody else and what they think you should be struggling for, or what you should be, you know, playing your games around. Because it's only really a huge struggle if it's the whole channel, which we don't have right now. But the game player is looking out there, it's looking for what is worthwhile in this life, and that's the fear that is associated with the 28. It's actually called the fear of death, and it's the fear of dying before you find that thing that makes life worth living. You know, the thing that, oh, this is why I'm here on this planet. So there's the fear of dying before you find that. And then finally, gate 44. At 3:48, this is the gate of alertness coming to meet, it's called. It's a memory gate. It has its fear, and the fear is past, the past repeating itself, or past baggage catching up with us. This is a tribal gate. It's pointing upwards towards the ego at gate 26, giving the channel of the transmitter. It's a memory gate, so it is the instinct and the memory to transmit to the tribe what can work in terms of how to increase material resources. Because that tribe loves to have its material resources increased. Oh, yes. Thank you very much for joining me for this line. I will be back tomorrow for a line 4. And until then, go gently. Bye-bye.